All right, friends, truth time. Tell me when it is that you have your best thinking, your best ideas, maybe feel most like yourself. I'm going to guarantee you that it is not sitting at your desk staring at your computer. That's just not how our brains operate. This week, we are talking about the benefits of rhythmic movement. What is that? What I mean is the benefits for your body and your brain when we are moving in a rhythmic fashion, walking, running, swimming, biking, just some kind of repetitive, continuous movement. Now, we have been hearing ad nauseum about the benefits of resistance training. And believe me, I'm all on board. Made some fantastic strength gains this year. I'm not upset about it. But for myself, and I'm sure that you can back me up on this, there is something very different about the quality of the movement and the benefits to my body when I am out walking. Now, I am a walker, I'm not a runner. That's the kind of movement I do. But whatever that is for you, again, walking, running, swimming, biking, right? Some kind of repetitive, ongoing motion where you don't have to think very much about the activity that you're doing. You're not focusing on lifting or contracting a certain part of your body. You're just in a steady state of movement. That has tremendous benefits. As you know, we are still in our stress reduction challenge. And this, I believe, is week 7. Don't quote me on that. I'm not a big numbers wonk. But what we are doing each week is adding some intentional small practice that is helping us with stress reduction, particularly through the lens of thinking about chronic stress, telomere length, kind of our full body cellular health and well-being, if you will. I want us to feel better in our bodies and our brains, but I also want us to be combating the effects of chronic stress inside our bodies. If you're new here, I'm Dr. Megan Mello. I'm a family and obesity medicine physician as well as a physician coach. I want to help you live a better life. And what I mean by that is really global. I want us to be working in a capacity that doesn't have us drowning in burnout and overwhelm. I want us to be taking as good of care of our bodies as we want for our patients, maybe even better, to combat the very real stresses that we feel, both as caregivers, but also as working in a completely messed up and broken system. The day that I'm recording this is the day that we are seeing the recommendations for Hep B vaccines in infants change. It is, to me, a devastating change. If you are practicing in the United States, if you are in the lives of kids and families, or you take care of liver disease, this is an important issue. We aren't going to dive deep into that particular topic, but this is one of very many challenges that come up over and over and over again in a generally broken healthcare system that is now excessively challenged by the impact of the government. Again, we're not diving into that political, but these things will continue to happen. And these things are extraordinary stressors to us. And as such, it is an argument for us continuing to find better and better ways to consistently care for ourselves so that we can continue to show up for our patients, so that we can continue to share appropriate evidence-based health information with the people who are ready to hear it from us. We are in such a weird time, but today, again, we're going to focus on rhythmic movement. So, why does this matter? There are a few different benefits that I want to highlight, and we'll go ahead and jump in with the particular effects on telomeres and telomerase. So, as you know, we have been talking about the book, The Telomere Effect, which really dives deep into the cellular stress level, and I think does so in such an approachable way to talk about it, because we are thinking about what is the impact of our various stressors, and that can be pollution, it can be, psychologic emotional stress, it can be, sedentary lifestyle, all of those things. What are the impacts on our telomeres, which are those protective end caps on our DNA, right? So that is looking at a very biological, molecular, physiological effect of stress But of course, we're also here to look at it through the lens of how does our life feel? In the chapter where they talk about the impacts of exercise specifically on telomerase, they highlight that there have been studies that have been done that have shown benefits for moderate aerobic physical activity. So that is, this bucket of exercise that we're talking about with rhythmic movement, walking, running, swimming, biking at a moderate intensity level, right? So we don't have to go hard and fast, although they also have studies that have shown benefits from HIIT, right? Your high intensity interval training, right? So whether you are someone who likes to go for a long run, who likes to get in the pool and do laps, who bikes to and from work, who, like myself, likes to go out on a long walk, all of those things have direct benefits on the telomerase enzymes and the impact of that on our telomere. So growing our telomere length. And it is something that can be grown. And we can also kind of affect the shortening, right, which is the premature shortening that contributes to cellular aging. Again, they see that with both moderate aerobic activity as well as high interval intensity training. They did not see that effect in resistance training, strength training. Now, as a perimenopausal woman, I'm all in on resistance training, but I can see that that is important in one area of my life. And it's okay if I don't see a direct impact on it. I'm still going to do it. And I would still say you should still do it too. But don't neglect that there are other types of movement that are also helpful for us. And again, thinking about this at the very, cellular level, literally the impact on our DNA, which has to do with our lifespan and our health span, right? We want healthy aging. Many of us are not thinking about that on a regular basis. I think, myself and the kind of medicine that I practice, I'm thinking about it more and more. Existentially also, right? Again, being a perimenopausal woman, I'm going to hit 45 next month. I'm thinking about my cellular health in a different way. But this is such a simple thing to do, right? This is a simple thing to do. And I want you to know that it has direct health impacts. It is very easy for us as physicians to get very stuck in the energy of trying to figure out what is the perfect thing. What is the perfect exercise? What is the perfect training regimen? What is the perfect nutrition? What is the perfect blah, 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 blah. I'm asking you here to let go of that perfectionist thinking and to tell yourself, yeah, if you're someone who likes to go for a walk, it is literally doing you good. There is direct evidence of that. Make sure that you're trying to go at moderate aerobic intensity, right? That's not challenging. If you're not used to doing it, you can start doing it, right? And you can work your way up, right? We do not need to harm ourselves. We can work our way up. If you are already doing it, then I want you to pat yourself on the back and I want you to see that as more dynamic than you even knew. Let's talk about some of the other ways that this type of activity benefits us. So these types of movement, again, I'm thinking walking, running, swimming, biking. There's probably other exercise that is out there that falls into this bucket, but thinking of repetitive movement that you don't have to think too much about, many people will tell you that that is a form of moving meditation. Typically, when I go out on my walk, I'm typically listening to podcasts. I might be listening to an audiobook. I've typically got some kind of sound in my ear, although I will find not infrequently that as I'm walking along, I'm having a lot of thoughts, and I'm sure that you do as well. Sometimes so much that I have zero idea what the podcast was about. I have zero idea, what I just listened to in the audiobook. That's okay. I think of the sound as something that can sometimes help me to generate ideas. It can sometimes help to influence my thinking. Generally speaking, the things that I listen to are people, who have a positive outlook on something that they're impacting. It might be health related. It might be, thinking about emotional health and well-being. It might be coaching related. It might be some interesting self-help books. I'm sort of all up in that world. These are things that can help me to, again, sort of stimulate my thinking. And that creates a state of moving meditation for me. It's why that exercise in particular feels so important to me. It is very different from the work that I do strength training, and I notice it when it is absent because I notice that I don't have that same sort of quiet, thoughtful, meditative time. If you read a lot from people who are tremendously productive in their lives, I'm thinking outside of medicine, this could be entrepreneurs, it could be people in the business world, it can be some of our great thinkers. They will often have some kind of a regular practice, usually involving movement, where they allow their thoughts to flow, right? That really sort of takes us into this idea of moving meditation. As I was thinking about getting ready for this episode, it occurred to me too that also how few of us have true moments of quiet outside of when we are sleeping, right? We are, generally speaking, people who are constantly interrupted, constantly asked questions or talking or listening to or giving presentations, having people come to us for advice or guidance on things, right? There is a lot of chatter around us all the time. If you have kids, you will be surrounded by their chatter all the time. If you have a partner, right, or other family members who want your time and attention, right? They want to be chatting with you. If you have friends and other people, we want all of these relationships, right? We want to be able to engage with people. And we as humans generally also need some meditative, quiet time. And that can be during this time period. Again, for myself, even if I'm listening to someone talking, kind of in my ear, podcast or audiobook, I may not be paying that much attention, and it is totally okay. I like that, though, again, as sort of helping me to generate my thoughts. I will often stop and take notes to myself. I find that incredibly powerful. I know that I'm not alone because, again, I've read and talked with many people, right, who have similar experiences. But I just want to highlight that having that quiet time when you're not in front of a computer, you're not with another person, you are just alone with your thoughts is incredibly powerful, meditative, and incredibly helpful, I think, for people who spend as much time with other people as we do. So I want to put in a plug for that because that level of thought and reflection that can come out of that experience while you are moving is also beneficial in terms of stress reduction. When we think about the impacts of exercise, there is the sort of aerobic and cellular components, but there is also the engagement of our parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system and how that impacts when we are putting positive stress on our system. So it's just another reason, guys, why we want to make sure that rhythmic movement is part of it. Now, again, if you are someone who is not exercising regularly and maybe you have a toxic relationship with exercise, I understand that, right? That is a very real phenomenon that has come out of diet culture and all sorts of problems. We aren't needing to think about it in that. Don't want us to think about exercise as a way to change our bodies. I want us to think about exercise as a way to help our bodies, help our brains to really help to process stress. What is, kind of another potential impact? So, again, if we think about the cellular level, when we are exercising, when we are moving, and again, in a rhythmic fashion that works just fine for this, we are putting positive stress and inflammation, into our bodies, which helps to stimulate other cellular mechanisms that are unrelated to telomerase, such as autophagy. I think we have more and more research coming out all the time that shows, kind of the impacts of aging on our bodies, the impacts of stress on our bodies. And some of that has to do with cellular debris, cellular damage and inflammation, and things that are not sort of functioning properly. When we are using positive stress, such as intentional physical activity, we are stimulating helpful mechanisms that trigger cellular cleanup, autophagy, right? Removal of damaged proteins and replacement. You can kind of think of it similarly if we have a muscle or a tendon injury and the way that the body sort of repairs it by sort of overlaying, some scaffolding and then starting to repair in the middle. I'm not a musculoskeletal person, so that is the way that I understand it. And please don't correct me if that's not correct. That is my simplistic model, and we're just going to stick to it, right? But when we put positive stress into our bodies, we are going to be able to trigger mechanisms through autophagy, AMPK, just a variety of different mechanisms. Just take my word for it. It's in all the books. Anyway, I want us to think about doing this on a regular basis. Now, again, you might be somebody who already moves regularly. Perhaps you walk regularly, you run, you bike, you swim, right? There is some kind of movement that you're already doing. This particular exercise, again, is something that allows you to not have to think very much about the movement. If you are currently exercising, but you are tending more towards resistance training or playing a sport or doing something where, you really have to be kind of in the moment and paying attention to what your body is doing, keep doing that, but consider, could I add something else? Could you add in a 10-minute walk where perhaps you just have some quiet time on your own? Again, you could be listening to something, but you don't have to be. You figure out what makes a difference for you. I have a client that I was recently talking to, and she has a 15-minute walk to work that she does. And she tells me that she doesn't listen to anything while she's doing that. She just lets it be quiet. This is a busy person. She works full time. She has a physician husband. She has 3 children. And I thought, how perfect is that you give yourself 15 minutes regularly, right, to and from work. I'm like, don't make a change there. Keep that going, right? Because I imagine even if she couldn't name all the benefits of it, there are benefits in terms of the mental stillness that can come along with that. Now, sometimes we might have to do some cleanup on, kind of the tone of our thoughts. That's a different challenge, right? But giving yourself the movement and the quiet time to just let yourself be is incredibly helpful. So again, if you are doing some movement, but it's not this kind, please add it in. It can be small. If you are already doing this, give yourself a high five. There's nothing more that you need to add this week unless you need to change the frequency of it. No problem. If you're not doing any movement yet, that's all right. Start small. Again, a 10-minute walk. We can do this. We can do this. And I want you to tell yourself, this isn't about changing our bodies. This isn't about, exercising because we should. This is about taking care of our bodies, taking care of our brains, taking care of our telomeres and our cellular health. We want to continue to decrease the stress that we feel, not only the emotional stress that we're very aware of, but also the internal stress that happens to our bodies from living in the ways that we've been conditioning to live, right? We've been conditioned to live on very little sleep, scrounging to get nutrition, putting everyone else's needs above our own, working through lunch, right? All of these different things. This is how we start to combat it. Now, if you are new here, again, we are in the middle of a 10-week stress reduction challenge. We started October 28th. You can go back and listen to that. That's episode 200. We started with adding a practice of yoga nidra. We have incorporated more greens into our diet. We have worked on our breath and our sleep. We have added intentional laughter. And last week we added berries. This week, rhythmic movement. There are benefits to it. You can read all about it. Again, if you don't have a copy of this book, The Telomere Effect, I would highly recommend it. You can find a link in the show notes to my bookshop.org bookshop thing. It's an affiliate link, right? It earns me a teeny tiny bit of credit, and it's not Amazon. I love buying books from not Amazon. This is a chance to do some good. And you can give yourself a little holiday present. So check out the book there. Again, I highly recommend it. I think it will have you thinking about your health in a very different way. Incorporate some rhythmic movement, all right? My friends, that's what I have for you this week. Have an awesome week. Take good care of yourself. You always did deserve it. You still do. And I'm here to help you to make sure that we're getting it done. All right, until next time, take care.